I decided to divorce Steven. On the first day after making up my mind, I threw away my wedding ring and bought a plane ticket. On the second day, I erased every trace of myself from the marital home. On the third day, I went to pick up my child from school and bought him everything he wanted to eat. The little boy sneered, "So Dad's going to marry Aunt Stella. You're scared now? Trying to butter me up now?" Too late. I looked at his face, so identical to Steven's. There wasn't a shred of reluctance left in my heart. Trash belongs with trash. In the trash can. If Stella is willing to recycle him, then of course I'll be generous enough to fulfill her wish. Chapter 1. My resolve to get a divorce came suddenly. That day, once again, I failed to get through to Steven Garcia on the phone. Just like so many times over the past 6 months, the one who answered was always his secretary. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Mr. Garcia has instructed us that his private schedule is not to be disclosed to anyone." But not long after, Stella posted a set of photos on her social media account. At a glance, I recognized the Bulgari wedding ring on Steven's hand. Stella was Steven's first love. In the 5th year of my marriage to Steven, she prepared for a divorce and returned to the country. From the very first day she came back, Steven's heart had been thrown into chaos. Chapter 2. Actually, after hanging up the phone, I only felt a little upset. The thought of divorce wasn't that strong yet, until I suddenly fainted from hypoglycemia. At that time, the only ones in the room were me and Lucas, who had just come home from school. I was unconscious for about 10 minutes, and woke up to the sound of him shouting while playing video games. Lucas glanced at me once, then went right back to his game. I felt so awful that I could only muster all my strength to ask him for help. "Lucas, can you get Mommy a piece of chocolate, please?" Hearing that, Lucas stood up impatiently, hugging his tablet, but instead of helping me, he walked around me and went straight out of the bedroom. The sound of the door slamming echoed. In that instant, just that 1 second, everything suddenly became clear to me. Back then, Lucas existed because Stella had gotten married. And Steven, drunk out of his mind, lost control after drinking. I never intended to give birth to him. The doctor didn't recommend it either. Steven had drunk far too much that night. But he proposed to me, earnestly begging me to keep the child. I had liked him for so many years, how could I bear to refuse? So I got married. I gave birth. But now, the child I carried for 10 months, the child I raised with my own hands, had grown into someone so cold and selfish it made my teeth ache with bitterness. So why should I, for his sake, continue to endure and compromise in a marriage like this? Chapter 3. Steven still came home late at night. I didn't sleep. I waited for him the whole time. He seemed to be in a pretty good mood. He took a small box out of his pocket and handed it to me. "See if you like it." I opened it. It was a bracelet. In the photos Stella posted today, there was a very flashy necklace. If I wasn't mistaken, this simple bracelet was probably the free gift that came with the necklace. But I didn't even feel sad anymore. I even smiled at him. "It's quite nice." Steven seemed to relax. "As long as you like it." When he came out of the shower, he handed me the towel as he always did. I took it, just like always. Halfway through drying my wet hair, I suddenly stopped. "Steven." I called his name softly. He stayed seated, but raised his hand and grasped my arm. "What? Want it now?" I let out a faint, mocking smile. Stella had been back for 5 months, and Steven and I hadn't slept together for 5 months either. Seeing that I didn't speak, Steven simply turned around and pulled me into his arms. "Paula." There was a gradual heat in his eyes. He lowered his head, wanting to kiss me, but I pushed him away. "Steven." I smiled at him calmly. Every word I spoke was steady to the extreme. "Let's get a divorce." Chapter 4. Divorce? He was clearly taken aback. "Yes, divorce." I broke free from his arms, stepped back, and stood firm. "Because of Stella?" Steven frowned impatiently. "You know she's in the middle of a divorce. I'm just helping her out." His gaze suddenly stopped on my ring finger. The wedding ring was gone, leaving only a faint mark around the finger. "Paula, you're already a mother. How can you still be this willful?" I turned and walked toward the door. "The divorce agreement is on the desk in your study." Take a look at the property division. I only want what I deserve. If there are no objections, please sign it as soon as possible. What about Lucas? Steven's voice was already laced with anger. Don't forget, his last name is Garcia. He's my son. Steven Garcia's son. I held the doorknob, turned back, and smiled at him. He's a Garcia by blood, so I won't fight you for him. Paula. Steven's face turned ashen. What exactly are you making a fuss about? Because I've neglected you these past few days? I told you, Stella is getting a divorce. I'm just helping her with the lawsuit. And Lucas is only 5. He can't be without a mother to take care of him. With a cold face, Steven picked up his clothes. I'll treat today as you throwing a childish tantrum. I'll stay at the company apartment for the next few days. Paula. When you've thought it through and realized your mistake, come find me. Chapter 5. On the afternoon of the second day, Steven received a call from the house staff at the marital home. Paula had cleared out all of her belongings, and the woman who had always doted on Lucas, handling everything herself, for the first time, hadn't personally taken him to school. Steven couldn't help thinking of the divorce agreement Paula had prepared. In black and white, it clearly stated that she did not want custody of Lucas. That left Steven utterly stunned. Paula hadn't had an easy delivery back then. Lucas had been put into an incubator right after he was born. Once her confinement period ended, she began raising the child with her own hands. Over the past 5 years, she hadn't been away from Lucas for a single day, so he didn't believe Paula would abandon the child, which meant that this whole dramatic move of hers was nothing more than jealousy over Stella. And jealousy, of course, only existed because Paula loved him desperately. Steven knew she had secretly loved him for many years. When he and Stella were in love back then, she had been nothing more than an inconspicuous little girl. Later, when he and Stella broke up because of a misunderstanding, Paula reappeared by his side, already grown into a graceful young woman. It was hard to say whether that night of drunken loss of control had truly been an accident, or whether he himself had felt a stir of attraction. In the 5 years after their marriage, their life as husband and wife had been fairly harmonious, until Stella appeared. These past few months, he had indeed neglected Paula somewhat, but no matter what, Paula couldn't just casually bring up divorce, so he decided it was time to teach her a lesson. The house staff called again. Mr. Garcia, Madam has called a car and says she's moving out. Steven Garcia silently lit a cigarette. Then he lowered his gaze to the wedding ring on his ring finger. After a long moment, he said coldly, "Let her go. Tell her that once she steps out that door, she is never coming back." Chapter 6. I went to pick up Lucas an hour early. I also bought him every toy he wanted, and all the junk food he liked to eat, but I never allowed him to have. Yet Lucas didn't look happy at all. He frowned with a small face full of disdain and said, "So you found out Dad's going to marry Aunt Stella, and now you're scared? Trying to curry favor with me now? Too late." He smashed the toys onto the ground one by one, then stomped on them. All the food was thrown straight into the trash can. Then he looked at me smugly. "Go on. Hit me if you dare. I'll tell Dad immediately." I looked at that face of his, identical to Steven's. There truly wasn't the slightest bit of reluctance left in my heart. "Lucas." I reached out and touched his face one last time. "I won't bother you anymore. Today, let's say goodbye completely. From now on, we'll never see each other again." "What do you mean?" Lucas froze for a moment, instinctively reaching out to grab me, but I dodged him, then smiled again. "It means I don't want you anymore." Lucas was completely stunned. After a moment, something like hurt seemed to flash through his eyes, but immediately after, he glared at me fiercely. "Who cares if you want me or not? Aunt Stella is 100 times better than you. Then let her be your mother." I raised my eyebrows indifferently. "Lucas, good luck." Chapter 7. The plane ticket I booked was to G-City. I spent half a month having a great time there with my best friend from my student days, until Steven's call went through to my friend's phone. "Paula, Lucas is sick. He's crying and insisting on seeing you." I thought about it for a moment, then replied calmly, "It's normal for kids to get sick when the seasons change. The Garcia family has a family doctor and a private hospital. They'll take good care of him." Steven didn't say anything else and hung up directly. My friend asked me a little worriedly, "Paula, do you really not want the child anymore?" She knew how much effort and heart I had poured into Lucas. I nodded. I don't want him anymore. Then, "Steven, do you still like him?" In the past, just hearing the name Steven would make my heart race uncontrollably. But now, there wasn't the slightest ripple. "I don't like him anymore. I really don't, at all." My friend couldn't help cheering. "Paula, this calls for a celebration. Tonight, we drink till we drop." Chapter 8. The first time between Steven and me had been caused by alcohol. Back then, I was sober. The one who was drunk was Steven. This time, though, I was completely wasted. The man in front of me, however, remained sober and restrained the entire time. Even when he supported me, his hands were impeccably gentlemanly. My friend hesitated for a long while before walking over. "Adrian, could I trouble you to take Paula back?" Adrian didn't respond. He helped my almost limp body sit down on the sofa. "Leave the driver to you. I'll drive myself back." "Adrian, are you really going to ignore Paula again?" Adrian's gaze was calm and distant. 5 years ago. I already said it, her matters have nothing to do with me anymore. I suddenly let out a silent laugh. Right. Back then, Steven had forced himself on me while drunk. Adrian had insisted on calling the police. But my love-addled brain took over. And in the end, I chose to marry him instead. Adrian was my childhood friend. We had grown up together. Because of what happened with Steven, he was utterly disappointed in me and cut off all contact. I never expected to run into him tonight. Over the years, I'd heard he had been abroad and never came back. Who would have thought we'd meet again in a bar in G City? I suppressed the embarrassment in my heart and softly called out to my friend, "Laura, let him go. I can get back by myself." Adrian didn't say a word. He turned around and strode away. But when my friend helped me out of the bar, his Bentley was parked by the roadside with the hazard lights flashing. Adrian leaned against the car, smoking, cigarette butts scattered all over the ground beside him. "Paula," he smiled, but there was an indescribable bitterness in that smile. "I must have owed you a debt in my past life." Chapter 9. He helped me into the car. Then he arranged for a driver to take my friend home. When the car arrived downstairs at my hotel, Adrian parked, unfastened his seat belt, then leaned over, pinched my chin, and kissed me. My mind was in a haze. Perhaps the alcohol had clouded my judgment. I actually wrapped my arms around his neck and responded to his kiss. "Paula, Adrian's kiss gradually deepened. His fingers threaded through my long hair, gripping the back of my head and forcing me to meet him halfway. Only when I was almost out of breath did he end the deep kiss. He lowered his head, pressing his forehead against mine. "Do you want it?" Suddenly, I thought of the chat screenshot I'd received a month ago. It was from Steven to Stella. "I want you. I want to do it with you again." Back then, because of Lucas, I'd been trapped in deep pain and turmoil. But now, I didn't care about anything anymore. I lifted my face and kissed him directly, tightening my arms around his neck. "Adrian, let's do it." But Adrian grabbed my shoulders and gently pushed me away. In the shifting light, his handsome brows and eyes were intensely serious, completely focused. "Paula, I have a condition." "What condition?" "I'm a very traditional man." Adrian lowered his eyes with a faint smile. His fingers on my shoulders trembled slightly as they tightened. "If we do it, you'll have to take responsibility for me." Chapter 10. The moment he said that, I sobered up by more than half. Responsibility. That word was far too heavy, and it stabbed straight into an old wound in my heart. Back then, when Steven proposed to me, it was also under the banner of taking responsibility after drunken misconduct. Seeing that I didn't speak, Adrian gave a soft chuckle. "Paula." He brushed aside the messy hair on my forehead and looked down at me deeply. "If you don't want to take responsibility, then don't provoke me. You know, I'm not that kind of man who treats things casually." He gently pushed me away and got out of the car. Then he opened the door for me. "Come on, I'll walk you back to your room." He stood there, tall, yet somehow cold and distant, backlit. I couldn't see the expression on his face. I only felt an inexplicable sadness. Adrian walked me to the door of my room. After watching me go in, He left directly. I leaned against the back of the door for a long time without moving. I didn't know whether it was the alcohol making me uncomfortable, or the last look Adrian gave me as he left. And the final thing he said. He said, "Paula, my flight is at 3 a.m. tonight. I think I'll never come back again." Suddenly, my phone rang, jarring and abrupt. My thoughts were yanked back at once. The number looked familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. I answered, only to hear the voice of another one of Stephen's secretaries. "Madam." The secretary sounded extremely respectful and cautious. "It's like this, Mr. Garcia drank too much at a business dinner tonight and just threw up. He won't drink the hangover soup the house staff made. Says it doesn't taste right. Madam, could you possibly come back?" I cut him off directly. "If he doesn't want the hangover soup, then let him take hangover pills. I'm neither a servant of the Garcia family nor a doctor. Don't contact me about things like this in the future. Oh, and while you're at it, please urge Mr. Garcia to speed up the divorce process." "Madam." The secretary tried to say something more, but was cut off by Stephen's deep, angry shout. "Who told you to call her?" "Alexia. You're getting bolder by the day." "But Mr. Garcia." "Shut up. My affairs have nothing to do with Paula. If you take matters into your own hands again, resign yourself." I couldn't be bothered to listen any further and hung up directly. There wasn't the slightest ripple in my heart. I casually added Secretary Alexia's number to the blacklist as well. Chapter 11. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I woke up for no reason at all. I found Adrian's account in my WeChat contacts. In the 5 years I'd been married to Stephen, we hadn't exchanged a single holiday greeting, yet Adrian was still using the same profile picture he had for over a decade. A roughly carved little wooden doll, barely recognizable as a little boy. It was the first figurine I ever carved, back when I'd whimsically tried learning wood carving. I later gave it to him. Staring at that avatar, I couldn't help smiling, but as I smiled, tears fell for no apparent reason. I sent Adrian a message. "Adrian, my tooth hurts so much I can't sleep." The chat window quickly showed typing, but no message came for a long time. Just as I was getting drowsy, on the verge of falling asleep, the notification sound rang. "I bought you some medicine. A same city express delivery will bring it over shortly." I froze for a moment before replying. "Oh." Adrian didn't reply again. I held my phone, but sleep no longer came, and there were no more messages from him. About 40 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Feeling listless, I got up and went to open the door. But when the door opened, standing outside wasn't a delivery rider. It was Adrian, fatigue still visible on his face. "Adrian?" I was stunned. He was still holding the bag of medicine, his expression calm. "Same tooth hurting again?" I nodded blankly. He set the medicine down, then went to the bathroom to wash and disinfect his hands. "Open your mouth. Let me take a look. You're not even a dentist." "Paula, when have I ever not handled your toothaches?" The moment he said that, both of us froze. We hadn't seen each other for 5 whole years. Adrian's expression cooled slightly, but his movements were incredibly gentle. He pressed me down onto the sofa, tilted my face up, and had me open my mouth. With long, practiced fingers, he found the wisdom tooth that always gave me trouble. But this time, that tooth wasn't swollen or inflamed at all. Adrian glanced at me. Then, unhurriedly, he withdrew his fingers. "Paula." He took a disinfectant wipe and carefully cleaned each finger. Then he cupped my face and lowered his head. "You lied to me." I didn't dare look at him, my eyes darting away. "I'm sorry. No need to apologize." Adrian suddenly curved his lips into a smile. "I'm very happy." "Adrian?" I looked at him in surprise, and he kissed me. "I missed my flight." "Then what do you do now?" "I was going back to go on a blind date. And now," he added lightly. The prospective wife flew away too. Then what do you do?" "What do you think, Paula?" Adrian brushed aside the messy strands of hair by my cheek, deepening the kiss little by little. "How about you compensate me with one? I've been married, and I've even had a child. It's fine. I'm older, a leftover man. As long as I can get a wife, I'm satisfied." I couldn't help laughing. "Adrian, what kind of leftover man are you?" Women chasing you line up all the way to France. Adrian looked at me deeply. But I'd rather have nothing than settle. I really couldn't tell. You will, he said calmly, when we do it. Chapter 12. At the time, I truly didn't realize that what Adrian said carried a double meaning. Not until our first time, when he couldn't even wait to carry me to the bed. My knees rubbed painfully against the sofa. I couldn't help biting him. Adrian. My knees hurt. His burning hot palm clamped around my waist. And he lifted me, turning us over. The position shifted, he leaned back against the sofa, and I sat in his lap, my back to him. But the moment I sat down, I felt the muscles in his waist and abdomen tense instantly. Even his breathing turned rapid and rough. Paula, I'm sorry. I can't really hold back anymore. I'd originally thought that what he said earlier meant I'd see how he performed in the future, but I never expected that at nearly 30 years old, he was actually still a first-timer. All those years abroad, he hadn't even dated a single girlfriend. Adrian, all these years, you never fell in love? I lay face down on the pillow, letting him clean me up. Adrian lowered his eyes. His movements were gentle, but he didn't look at me, and he didn't speak. Not until after we finished showering. For once, he took a cigarette and went out onto the balcony. When I went to find him, he was holding the cigarette between his fingers, gazing into the vast night sky, lost in thought. Adrian, I hugged his waist lightly from behind. What are you thinking about? Thinking about whether you'll take responsibility, or just have your fun, pull on your skirt, and walk away. I couldn't help laughing. Am I really that bad? He turned to look at me. There was a faint redness in his eyes. You are. Adrian. I couldn't laugh anymore. My eyes burned with swelling tears. Yes, back then, when he went abroad, I had promised him that I would marry him when he came back. But I fell in love with Steven, and then, in a muddled mess, ended up with that chaotic night. Adrian. I held him tightly. I'll take responsibility for you. Good. He held me even tighter and kissed me fiercely. Paula, since you said you'd take responsibility, then you'd better take responsibility for me till the very end. Chapter 13. On the 30th day in G City. Steven still hadn't signed the divorce agreement. I couldn't be bothered to wait any longer and directly filed a lawsuit with the court. The day Steven received the court summons, Lucas's kindergarten teacher also called me. Lucas's mom. Lucas has been dozing off and spacing out a lot in class these past few days. He doesn't look very energetic, and he seems to have lost some weight. I sighed softly. Teacher's son, you should contact Lucas's father instead. Lucas's mom, would it be convenient for you to come to the school? We haven't seen you pick Lucas up in a long time. Sorry, it's not very convenient. All right then. Sorry to bother you. Just as I was about to hang up, I still couldn't help myself. Teacher's son, when Lucas's dad comes to pick him up, could you ask him to keep an eye on whether the child is secretly playing on his tablet late at night? Lucas used to pretend to be asleep, then secretly play games in the middle of the night. Once I caught him. I was so angry that I smashed the tablet. But not long after, on his birthday, he received several brand new tablets again, perhaps afraid I'd smash them too. He did restrain himself afterward and didn't dare sneak around playing at night anymore. But now that I was gone, Steven was busy every day with the company and with Stella. How would he still have the time or energy to manage him? Although I'd decided to divorce Steven, and didn't plan to take Lucas, he was still my child in the end. I didn't want to watch him completely ruin himself. But that was all. I was only offering a kind reminder. Chapter 14. Steven had never thought that disciplining a child could be this mentally exhausting. After listening to the kindergarten teacher, he deliberately went to Lucas's room late that night. Sure enough, he caught him secretly playing games. In a fit of anger, he smashed the tablet as well. Lucas had been completely absorbed in the game. Enraged, he actually shoved Steven hard. It was only at that moment that Steven seemed to suddenly understand why Paula had been so furious and disappointed back then. Why, when he bought Lucas a new tablet again, Paula had blown up and gotten into a fierce argument with him. Unable to restrain himself, he slapped Lucas across the face. Lucas was clearly frightened. He cried for a long time, then finally went to sleep obediently on his own. But Stephen felt no sleepiness at all. He thought of the phone call Secretary Alexia had made to Paula that night. In fact, at the beginning, he had tacitly allowed it, he hadn't stopped it. It was only Paula's words and attitude that had instantly sent him into a rage. Just because of Estella. She had acted willful and unreasonable to such an extent. It had driven him completely up the wall. He knew she was only using divorce as a threat against him. And Lucas being so undisciplined and disobedient. That was all Paula's doing. She just wanted him to know how important she was. After finishing a cigarette, Stephen took out his phone. He was calling her proactively, for Lucas's sake. Lucas Garcia was blood of the Garcia family. But he was also the child Paula had nearly died giving birth to. As a mother, she couldn't possibly ignore her own child. But what Stephen never expected was, every single way of contacting Paula had been blocked. Even her best friend's number could no longer be reached. Suppressing his anger, Stephen walked all the way downstairs. The night wind blew against him, yet the rage burning in his chest refused to dissipate. So Paula wanted to play for real. Did she? Fine. Stephen laughed in extreme anger. Didn't she want a divorce? Then he would grant her wish. He was now impatient to see what expression Paula would wear when he truly signed his name on the divorce agreement. What had started as an act would turn into reality. She would surely regret it beyond measure. After all, she had once adored him so deeply, so much so that the moment Stella went abroad, Paula immediately appeared by his side. She had bewitched him, thrown his heart into chaos, and ended up having that kind of night with him. With Lucas, she had gotten her wish, becoming Mrs. Garcia. This time, however, he would give Paula the harshest lesson of all. He would make her understand what it truly meant to regret something beyond redemption. Chapter 15. When Stephen's lawyer called, Adrian was relentlessly wrapped around me, determined to prove that he wasn't all bark and no bite. Ms. Paula, Mr. Garcia asked me to inform you that the divorce procedures will be handled in the capital the day after tomorrow. As the lawyer's voice, cold yet polite, came through the line, I felt as if the last heavy stone pressing on my chest suddenly fell away. All right, I replied. Please tell Mr. Garcia that I'll return to the capital on time to take care of it. After I hung up, Adrian wrapped his arms around me from behind. Paula, let me go back with you. I shook my head. This is something between Stephen and me. I can handle it myself. Adrian's eyes were full of concern. But Paula, I'm worried. I deliberately teased him. What are you worried about? Afraid I won't be able to get divorced? Adrian suddenly smiled, but the smile carried an indescribable fragility. Paula, you'll never know how much it hurt me back then when I heard you were with Stephen, but I would never force you, never pressure you. You are free. That night, when I said you had to take responsibility for me, you don't actually have to take it seriously. Even if you don't take responsibility, it's fine. I turned around, hugged him, and lifted my face to kiss him lightly. But Adrian, these days with you have been so happy, and just now, you made me feel really good. I gently bit his chin. I'll take responsibility. Wait for me to come back. The eyes that were always warm and steady suddenly looked as if an entire sky of stars had fallen into them. Paula, he flipped over and pressed me down onto the bed, his deep, mellow voice sounding by my ear. I can make you feel even better. Then does that mean, for the rest of your life, you won't be able to bear leaving me? I wanted to laugh, but my body was rocked so hard it felt like it was about to fall apart. Physiological tears welled up at the corners of my eyes, misting my vision. Adrian, he lowered his head, kissing me in countless tiny, lingering touches. That fierce intensity gradually turned into something like a gentle, soaking rain. I couldn't take it anymore, my voice breaking into soft sobs. Adrian, it's too much, or does it feel good? Paula, tell me. He seemed to be holding himself back to the limit. The muscles in his forearms taut. Beads of sweat fell one by one onto my chest. In the end, I couldn't hold on anymore. I shook my head, crying softly. It feels good. Paula, if it feels good, then come back sooner. As my last bit of consciousness drifted away, I felt Adrian press a very gentle kiss to my brow. I'll be waiting for you in G City, Paula. Chapter 16. The day I returned to the capital, I went straight to the lawyer's office. But the moment I got out of the car, I saw Steven and Stella. Stella's face was full of joy, so much so that she even burst into tears of happiness. Steven then held her gently, his face filled with tenderness. Several lawyers stood nearby and tactfully turned their backs. I knew it, Stella's divorce case must have finally been settled, which was why Steven couldn't wait to finish the divorce procedures with me and regain his single status. That was fine. Stella was happy, Steven was happy, Lucas was happy, and I, together with Adrian, was both comfortable and happy. How could there be such a perfect win-win situation in this world? Thinking of that, I really couldn't hold it in, and laughed. But the moment I laughed, Stella noticed. Her expression instantly soured. She tugged at Steven's sleeve and said something I couldn't hear. Steven turned to look at me, his gaze cold and distant to the extreme. Paula, what are you laughing at? Stella's eyes were red as she hid behind Steven like a frightened little rabbit, as if she had suffered some enormous grievance. Miss Stella is happy about getting divorced. I'm about to get divorced too, and I'm happy as well. Is that not allowed? Steven choked slightly. The chill in his eyes seemed to deepen. Stella hurriedly tugged at his sleeve again. Steven, please talk things out nicely with Paula. Don't get angry. There's nothing for us to talk about. I said calmly. Mr. Garcia, let's get the paperwork done as soon as possible. Paula, haven't I reminded you before, everything you do should have limits? I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? If the divorce procedures are completed, you will have nothing to do with the Garcia family ever again. And Lucas Garcia, I will never allow you to see him even once more. Hearing that, I couldn't help feeling a trace of melancholy in my heart. A person can come to a realization in an instant, but bonds of flesh and blood aren't something that can be completely severed in a single moment. Still, I am first and foremost an independent individual, only after that am I Lucas's mother. I believe that after enough time has passed, after enough healing, that day will come. Mr. Garcia, actually, if I wanted to take this to court and fight for visitation rights, I would absolutely have a chance of winning. But right now, I don't want to waste any more time on matters like that. Lucas and I have a shallow bond as mother and son. We annoy each other just by looking at one another. If we don't meet, then we don't meet. I didn't know why, but after I said those words, Steven didn't look relieved at all. Instead, he seemed almost like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, slightly out of control. Paula, you really are ruthless. I've never seen a colder, more heartless mother than you. Lucas doesn't like you. I didn't understand it before, but now I do. Since you refuse to repent, I won't give you any more chances either. After saying that, he turned around and got into the car. He didn't even notice that Stella hadn't gotten in yet. I didn't care about anything he said, because I had long since stopped caring about him altogether. Chapter 17. When the divorce procedures reached the final step, Steven, usually so decisive and ruthless, became inexplicably hesitant and clingy. Paula, this last signature isn't done yet. If you admit your mistake now. Admit what mistake? I signed my name without the slightest hesitation, then slid the documents across the table to Steven. Not being tolerant enough of a mistress? Or being too strict when disciplining a child? Perhaps my attitude finally enraged Steven completely. His face turned livid as he picked up the pen and signed. Paula, even if you regret it later, it'll be useless. Even if you come back crying and begging me, I won't soften my heart again. I stood up and very carefully gathered all the documents, making sure they were properly organized. Mr. Garcia, Lucas isn't bad by nature. With strict guidance in the future, he won't go astray. You're his biological father. I trust you'll fulfill that responsibility. No need for your concern. Lucas will become the most outstanding heir of the Garcia family. I smiled faintly. Let's hope so. That would naturally be for the best. Chapter 18. I returned to G City quietly, a full day earlier than the time Adrian and I had agreed on. At that moment, Adrian was eating in the hotel's buffet restaurant. I called him. On the phone, I deliberately pretended to sound dejected. Adrian, Paula, what's wrong? I might not be able to return to G City at the agreed time. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Did something happen? I'll book a flight right now, don't worry. Wait until I get there and we'll talk. No, Adrian, I stood by the fountain outside the restaurant, watching through the glass as he put down his knife and fork, stood up, and walked quickly toward the exit. A bittersweet warmth suddenly flooded my heart. Look outside, do you see the fountain? Adrian stopped, then turned to look in my direction. I smiled at him and waved hard. Adrian, I'm right here. The restaurant was crowded with people, yet in my eyes, there was only him, holding his phone. He strode toward me. After a few steps, he simply broke into a run. At dusk, the setting sun was as beautiful as a painting. The wind lifted the hem of his trench coat, revealing legs absurdly long. He smiled at me, his eyes slightly red, so handsome it stole my breath and made my heart surrender completely, until he wrapped me tightly in his arms, holding me close, locking me against his chest. Paula. He cupped my face and kissed me, a little forcefully. By the end, he even bit my lip lightly. Paula, do you know what? I hate you to death. Adrian raised his hand to cover my eyes, then gently kissed the faint mark on my lips. But I love you even more, Paula. Chapter 19. After Adrian and I registered our marriage, we temporarily settled down in G City. In the second month after we got married, one of Steven's closest friends suddenly called me. Sister-in-law, is this a good time? What's the matter? Well, sister-in-law, Steven asked a few of us out for drinks tonight. He's drunk now, and after getting drunk, he refuses to let us take him home. You can call the Garcia family, or ask Stella to pick him up. I glanced at the tightly closed bathroom door and gently cut him off. Sister-in-law, Steven won't allow it. Just now, he suddenly called out your name. I found it a little funny. If I hadn't divorced him, if Stella hadn't regained her single status, the name he would have called out should have been Stella's. There is a kind of man who seems to only ever love the woman who leaves him. I interrupted my friend again. From now on, just call me Paula. And also, Steven and I have been divorced for a long time, so his affairs aren't my responsibility anymore. After saying that, I hung up without waiting for the other side to respond. Just as I ended the call, Adrian came out of the bathroom. Who was it? He asked casually. I answered just as casually. Someone unimportant. As I spoke, I reached for a towel, intending to help him dry off, but Adrian took it from my hand. You don't need to do these things. It's not tiring. He dried his hair in just a few quick motions, then smiled at me. Even if it isn't tiring, there's still no need. By my side. You don't need to do anything, yet every day, without fail. He patiently blow-dried my long hair for me. Don't you find it annoying? Adrian turned the hairdryer to a medium warm setting. Hearing that, he only looked at me gently. I'm not someone who fails to appreciate good fortune. Hubby. I couldn't help turning around to hug him, lifting my face for a kiss. Adrian lowered his head and kissed me, then stopped himself. Wait until your hair is dry, or you'll get a headache. I pouted at him, but couldn't resist reaching out to touch the firm abs at his waist. Only you, at a time like this. And you can still wait. Chapter 20. After our honeymoon, Adrian and I returned to Beijing together. Aside from our closest family members and my best friend, almost no one in Beijing knew that I was married, and we were planning to hold a wedding ceremony here as well. After all, both Adrian's family and mine were in Beijing. I ran into Steven again at a senior elder's birthday banquet. That elder wasn't particularly close to my family, but he had a very good relationship with Adrian's parents. So Adrian brought me along. Not long after we entered, Adrian was called away by the elder. Having lived abroad for years, he was naturally considered a rare guest. I went over to the dessert table to get some small cakes. When I turned around, I saw Steven and Lucas. Father and son were dressed alike, with the same small faces, quite eye-catching. Really, when Lucas saw me, his eyes instantly lit up. He even instinctively called out Mom and started toward me. But after taking just 2 steps, he seemed to remember something and stopped awkwardly. Steven's expression remained blank, but the corners of his lips were drawn tight. I nodded to them, suppressing the faint ache in my heart, and turned to leave. But Steven suddenly walked over. Paula. He looked at me for quite a while before speaking again. Since you're back in Beijing, Come back and stay at the Garcia house. Lucas misses you very much. I was rather surprised. Go back to the Garcia house? Stephen Garcia cleared his throat lightly, turned his face away, his voice a bit unnatural. You are, after all, Lucas's biological mother. He's not even 6 yet. He needs a mother to take care of him. Stephen, we're already divorced. I frowned, preparing to leave again. But Stephen grabbed me and said something unexpected. Paula, Stella has already returned to the US. What does that have to do with me? I shook off his hand and took a step back. How could it have nothing to do with you? He frowned. Didn't you get angry and insist on divorce because of Stella in the first place? Now that she's gone, your anger should have subsided. If you come back now, it's not like I wouldn't consider getting back together. After all, no matter what, you're Lucas's biological mother, better than some outsider. Stephen, how much clearer do you want me to be? When I divorced you, I never once thought about getting back together. Paula, I'm giving you a way out. I don't need it. I truly couldn't hold it in anymore. I raised my hand and showed him. Stephen, I'm married. The wedding ring on my ring finger glimmered quietly, dazzling yet restrained. Stephen's dark eyes contracted, his face instantly turning cold. But in the next moment, he looked at me and smiled faintly. Paula, there's really no need for you to do this. I already said it. If you want to remarry, I'm not unwilling to consider it. You say you're married, then where's your husband? I don't believe that. Having been married before and having had a child, you could find a man better than me. What's more, you love me. He spoke with absolute certainty, certain that because I once loved him, I would love him forever, certain that I was desperate to remarry him, only too embarrassed to say it out loud, certain that as long as he beckoned, I would come back without dignity. But what he didn't know was, even I hadn't realized it myself. Perhaps whatever fondness I once had for him cracked the night he lost control while drunk and forced himself on me. Later, agreeing to marry him was more likely because of Lucas, just as my final resolve to divorce him was also because of Lucas. Once, that child had been the reason my happiness and freedom were held hostage. But now, nothing could bind me anymore. Stephen, even if you're a domineering CEO, I said kindly, you don't live in a CEO romance novel. I suggest you find some time to get a brain CT scan and take a good look at what's going on in your head. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Adrian striding toward us. Chapter 21. He was dressed in a full black business suit, looking imposing and strikingly handsome. On the ring finger of his left hand was a wedding band, matching mine perfectly. Paula. He called my name gently, walking over to my side. He naturally intertwined his fingers with mine. The matching rings on our hands reflected each other brilliantly, making the lone Bulgari wedding ring on Stephen's hand look inexplicably ridiculous. Hubby, I'm a little hungry. Can you get me that small cake? I want the mango one. Adrian pinched my cheek lightly. Okay, but don't eat too much sweet stuff, or your tooth will hurt. He turned to get a plate and helped me pick out the cake, but Stephen suddenly lost control and swatted the plate to the ground. Adrian frowned and lifted his gaze, displeased. Mr. Garcia, what do you think you're doing? You were hired by Paula, weren't you? Stephen sized him up from head to toe, sneering. You really do look the part. Paula is my ex-wife. She even gave birth to a son for me. Are you sure you want to pick up a woman I don't want anymore? The air around us instantly fell dead silent. I truly didn't care about my past, but being publicly humiliated by Stephen like this inevitably still made me feel a trace of embarrassment. Adrian said nothing, not even the slightest change showed on his face. He simply turned to me, took off the watch I'd given him, then removed his wedding ring and handed them to me. Paula, hold these for me. I don't want to dirty them. I took them without understanding. Adrian, what are you going to do? Paula, give me 5 minutes. He lowered his gaze, rolled up his sleeves slightly, then walked straight up to Stephen and swung his fist into his face. I don't like hitting people, he said calmly. But Stephen, you brought this on yourself. As he spoke, another heavy punch landed. You should never have humiliated my wife. Stephen quickly recovered and fought back. My wife, he scoffed. Paula was married to me for 5 years and gave me a child. What kind of wife is she to you? Do I need to remind you you're already divorced? So what if we're divorced? Steven sneered. How much Paula loves me, you might as well ask her yourself. Enough. I was anxious, angry, and heartbroken all at once. I shoved Steven away and stood protectively in front of Adrian. Steven, I stopped loving you a long time ago. Did you hear me? What did you say? Steven stared at me coldly. Paula, say that again if you dare. Steven, I stopped loving you long ago. Maybe I stopped the night you took advantage of me while drunk. Then why did you accept my proposal? Why did you marry me? Steven gave a cold laugh. Paula, you just like the new and loathe the old. You changed your heart. You even abandoned your own child. How long do you think this man will like you? Why can't I change my heart? Steven, didn't you change yours too? You loved Stella, yet you lost control with me after drinking. You married me, yet you still slept with Stella. What does that make you? I never slept with Stella, Paula. After I married you, nothing ever happened between Stella and me. Steven looked at me, then suddenly laughed mockingly. I admit that when Stella came back, I wavered. But that night, at the very end, I thought of you, and I still left her place. Chapter 22. I was a little surprised. But beyond that, there were no extra emotions left. Whether he and Stella had gone all the way or not had long since stopped mattering. Even if they hadn't, I would still have insisted on a divorce. Enough. Steven, all of that is in the past. I'm married now, and I love my husband very much. I turned around and tightly clasped Adrian's hand. We're doing great. We love each other. You should move on too. What about Lucas? Steven's eyes were red. The child you carried for 10 months, you really don't want him anymore? He looked like a spoiled child who, only when about to be abandoned, finally realized fear. My vision blurred slightly, yet I still nodded. Yes, I don't want him anymore. In truth, if that day Lucas had just handed me a piece of chocolate, I might still have been unable to let him go, might have fought desperately for custody. I might have softened again and again, but when Lucas walked past me, slammed the door, and left, my heart truly died. Steven turned and pulled Lucas toward the exit, but Lucas suddenly broke free and burst into tears. I don't want to go with you. I want Mommy. Mommy, I won't play games anymore. I know I was wrong. Come back, please. Lucas ran over and clutched my hand tightly, refusing to let go. I couldn't deny that I still felt pain, heartache, but I also knew I would never forget that day. The day when, at my most helpless moment, my own child turned away so coldly and selfishly. What if I hadn't made it through? What if I had died just like that? Lucas, go back with your dad. Whether you're a child or an adult, you have to take responsibility for your choices. No, I won't go back. Mommy, I want to be with you. I don't want to be separated from you. Lucas cried and struggled nonstop. It seemed he had truly learned fear, truly realized his mistake. Because that day, when he was sick and hospitalized, it was Stella who took care of him. But after he fell asleep, he was woken by Stella's phone call. He heard Stella say, "Why should I stay here taking care of someone else's child instead of my own? If it weren't to get divorced smoothly, how could I possibly flatter this annoying kid? Lucas is stupid too. He actually said I treat him better than Paula. So ridiculous. What kind of mother loves someone else's child more than her own? But it's good that he's stupid. If I really marry Steven someday, with him this stupid, won't my own child have one less competitor?" He didn't really understand. After all, those topics were far too complicated for a 5-year-old. But he understood one sentence clearly. What kind of mother loves someone else's child more than her own? Yes, one's own mother is always better than a stepmother. It was probably from that day on that he slowly began to understand some things, and slowly began to remember how good I had been to him. But unfortunately, it was far too late. If your dad agrees, I'll come back to see you. And if you miss me, you can come see me too. But for now, I'm sorry, Lucas. I'm going to start my own life. I touched his small face and said, just like the last time we parted, good luck, Lucas. Chapter 23. Adrian and I held a wedding in Beijing. On the day of the wedding, Stephen and Lucas both came, but I didn't let either of them enter. Stephen sent an expensive gift. Adrian didn't accept it and had it sent directly to a charity foundation. Lucas also prepared a gift for me. It was a handmade craft he made himself, along with a card. I kept the card and gave the craft to a child who liked it. I heard that day Stephen's Rolls-Royce was parked outside the wedding venue for a long time without leaving. I also heard that after Adrian took me home, that Rolls-Royce seemed to follow us to our marital home. It was just that our home was a private villa, and his car couldn't get in. On our wedding night, at the most tender and lingering moment, Adrian suddenly whispered something in my ear. "Paula, do you think he's outside right now? So jealous he's about to go crazy?" I kicked him angrily. "What kind of twisted fun is that, Adrian?" Adrian caught my ankle and slowly lifted it higher. He leaned down and kissed me deeply, because for those thousands of days and nights before, I was just as jealous, driven completely mad. "Adrian." I felt a pang of tenderness and couldn't help holding him tighter. He gently kissed my ear again. "But not anymore, Paula. From now on, the one who'll be jealous is Stephen, and I'll make him jealous for an entire lifetime, including the next one."